Protesters have been rallying in towns and cities in Myanmar to mark 100 days since the military seized control and plunged the country into chaos. On the morning of February the 1st, the generals detained the de facto leader Aung San Suu Kyi and declared the November election, which she won overwhelmingly, null and void. The bloody crackdown that resulted from the resulting power grab resulted in the deaths of more than 780 civilians. Well, for more on this now, we're joined from Bangkok by Phil Robertson, who is Deputy Director of the Asian Division of Human Rights Watch. Phil, thank you very much for joining us on the show. Now, there have been systemic human rights violations in Myanmar. What's the situation like on the ground there now?
Well, we're 100 days in and there's no end in sight. This is a tug of war going on between the civil disobedience movement, which is trying to strangle the economy, versus a military that is trying to end all resistance by use of force, including lethal force that has resulted in over 780 people being shot down and killed in the streets of Myanmar. This is something that needs to be dealt with by the international community. The UN Secretary General made a promise early on in this process to try to reverse this coup, and there needs to be a commitment to fulfill that pledge by not only the UN, but also like-minded states in Europe and elsewhere.
You say the international response, that they need to do more. So what exactly do they need to do? How far do they need to go to really make a difference?
Well, we need to have coordinated sanctions. We need to have an international arms embargo. We need a real coordinated international campaign on countries that are not doing enough, like Japan and South Korea and Australia and India. Major important states that could have a significant impact, but for whatever reason have decided to stay silent and stay on the sidelines. They need to be basically brought into the fold and be part of a larger coalition to really put significant pressure on the military regime in Myanmar.
And as well, Phil, let's talk about, there has obviously, as we know, been a huge crackdown on protesters and journalists protesting in Myanmar against the military coup. But from what we've seen today, the potential punishments hasn't deterred them.
Well, these are incredibly brave protesters, nonviolent, but determined to see it through, that they are not going to live under a military junta. These are by and far and away the largest and most sustained protests we've ever seen in Myanmar. And, they've gotten very smart. They do these sort of pop-up protests because they know if they organize a mass protest for a long period of time, the military and the police are going to come and start shooting people. We've now got a cat and mouse game going on between protesters and police and military, including also many people being arrested. I mean, we've over 4,000 people in detention now.
And Phil, 3 journalists who fled to Thailand from the military coup in Myanmar could be repatriated back. What's the latest on their case?
Well, right now, there's been a lot of pressure by various diplomats in the UN on the Thai government to take another look at this. We're cautiously optimistic that there may be some arrangement made where they may be able to not be sent back to Myanmar. Everybody recognizes if they were sent back, they would immediately be arrested and face persecution, and that is unacceptable. So everybody's now looking for a sort of third way to address this issue, and we're hoping that there'll be progress in the coming days.
And as you said there, that if they were sent back to Myanmar, they face prosecution. But what is the third way?
Absolutely.
What else? What is the third way?
Well, the third way would be trying to find a humanitarian solution, as representative of the Thai Ministry of Foreign Affairs said today. How that comes together, what that would look like, I think is still being negotiated. But it's quite clear that the military in Myanmar has targeted journalists in a systematic way. We have over 70 journalists who have been arrested in Myanmar. Well over 50 are still in detention. They are trying to prevent any sort of news coming out about what the military and the police are doing to the people in Myanmar, the rights abuses they are committing. And that is unacceptable. They're trying to shut down any sort of reporting coming out of that country. And this is part of that as well, that, these people, if they were sent back from Thailand, would face that same dragnet and that same persecution that journalists who are still in Myanmar are facing.
OK, Phil Robertson, Deputy Director of the Asian Division of Human Rights Watch, thank you very much for joining us on the show.